In this video, I'm going to reveal 5 wide receivers I'm just not comfortable drafting in 2024 fantasy leagues. I'm Nick Whalen from RotoWire. Let's get right to it. We start with Calvin Ridley, now of the Tennessee Titans. I'm a Jags fan, believe me. I watched it in Jacksonville last season. It wasn't all bad, but it was not exactly the bill of goods that we thought we were being sold. Not sure it gets any better in Tennessee for Ridley this season with Will Levis tossing him the ball. He's a solid player, but at this point in his career, he's no longer a star. I don't think he has that kind of upside, especially in this offense. The drops were an issue last season. There was just no week-to-week consistency. That chemistry with Trevor Lawrence was never there. Now he's got to start over and try to build that same thing with a young quarterback in Levis. I just don't see Tennessee as a markedly better spot for Calvin Ridley. He's got competition for targets from DeAndre Hopkins. They brought in another veteran wide receiver in Tyler Boyd. And, part of the equation here is that there are just too many better options who tend to go off the board in Calvin Ridley's range. If you're waiting to grab a second or third or even fourth wide receiver, T. Higgins, Keenan Allen, Christian Kirk, Terry McLaurin, Chris Godwin, Jaden Reed, these are all guys I prefer over Calvin Ridley this season. Another receiver in the AFC South, Michael Pittman. I like Pittman, the player, let me be clear, but I just have too many questions about what this offense is going to look like with Anthony Richardson back at the helm. Only played in 2 full games a season ago, only took about 160 snaps as a rookie. Now, maybe it's an excellent offense and the Colts win the AFC South. That is absolutely in the cards. There's significant upside here with Anthony Richardson, but will it be a productive fantasy offense for wide receivers? That's what I'm not so sure about. Again, I like Pittman as a player, but you're incurring a lot of risk here for a guy who you often have to take in the second round of a draft. I prefer Drake London. I prefer Nico Collins in what should be a more fantasy-friendly offense in Houston. I'd even rather wait around and grab someone like Devontae Smith or DK Metcalf. I view those guys as kind of equally safe as Michael Pittman, and you're saving some value there, getting him around later. Pittman should have a nice floor as a wide receiver 2 in fantasy this season. Now, if things break right with Anthony Richardson, he could certainly shoot higher than that, but I'm approaching this situation with some level of caution. I found myself passing on Michael Pittman in the late second or early third rounds. If you're enjoying this video, please give us a like, subscribe to the RotoWire YouTube channel. We'll be bringing you a ton of content over these next few weeks leading up to week 1 and certainly through the NFL season as well. But like, subscribe really helps us out. We appreciate it. On to our next wide receiver who I'm fading this season, Tyler Lockett of the Seattle Seahawks. Now, in another video, I said I'm all in on Jackson Smith-Njigba. He's one of my favorite later round values. Well, that means I'm out on Tyler Lockett. There has to be a give and take here. Lockett stayed healthy last season, but the production took a big step back. He averaged just 11.7 fantasy points per game in PPR. That was his lowest output since 2017. The raw target numbers were down. The yards per target were down. The big plays really dried up last season. Lockett only had 2 touchdowns over the final 10 games of the season for Seattle. I think this is the year we see Tyler Lockett move into a different phase of his career. Seattle has JSN waiting in the wings. I think there's a great chance he takes over as the true wide receiver 2 next to DK Metcalf. And frankly, I think that was the plan, right? When you take Jackson Smith-Njigba in the first round, you're not asking him to function as your wide receiver 3 for a few years and eventually you work him in. I think this is a succession plan and they want him to be the wide receiver 2 over Tyler Lockett. You're not paying an exorbitant price for Lockett. I will give him that, but I'd rather chase higher upside in that range. If I'm looking for a late wide receiver, I want somebody who can give me a little bit of a higher ceiling. Curtis Samuel in Buffalo, Josh Downs in Indy. Those are some guys I've been taking over Tyler Lockett. Next on our list is Christian Watson. Now, I understand the appeal with Christian Watson. He's the home run hitter in this Green Bay offense, but obviously health is still a major concern here. I know he said he addressed it this offseason. He was down at UW-Madison getting the hamstring checked out. We'll see. You can't really be any worse than it's been over the last couple of years, but we still need to see it in game situations. And, almost an equal concern for me now in Green Bay, other than the injury to Watson, is the wide receiver depth. The Packers no longer need Christian Watson to develop into this high-level number 1. I mean, it'd be nice. That's kind of what their thought was when they drafted him, but they don't need it in the way that it felt like they did a year or 2 ago. Jaden Reed, Octavian Wicks, Romeo Doubs, even Bo Melton. These guys have all emerged as real dudes in this Green Bay wide receiving core. And even if Christian Watson stays healthy, I don't think it's a lock that he's all of a sudden their wide receiver 1. I think he kind of has to earn that spot back. I do think Watson's price in the 7th or the 8th round is fair. I think it reflects the risk-reward proposition you're making, but I'd rather take a flyer on Jordan Addison in that range. Even Ladd McConkey could emerge as a wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2 for the Chargers. There's even some rookies who tend to still be on the board a round or 2 later. I tend to go that way instead of chancing it again with Christian Watson. We finish out with the biggest name on this list, where we're saving the best career for last, Davante Adams of the Las Vegas Raiders. It pains me to say this because Davante has been one of my favorite players in the NFL for a long time, but I'm just not willing to pay an early to mid second round price for a veteran wide receiver who's approaching his 32nd birthday. We know Davante isn't happy in Vegas. This is so far from what he signed up for when he forced his way here in 2022 to play with his college quarterback, Derek Carr, who I may remind you is now the quarterback of the New Orleans Saints. I don't think Davante came here saying, I want to play with Aiden O'Connell. Hook me up with Gardner Minshew. That's what I want. I will say, despite the poor QB play, Adams still put up 1,144 yards, 8 touchdowns last season, but that's a far cry from his previous 2 seasons when he topped 1,500 yards. He put up 25 combined touchdowns. It's a big drop-off, and it's tough for me to forecast a major step forward at this stage in his career, and with all the unknowns in this Raiders offense. We don't even know who's going to be the starting quarterback in week 1, let alone midway through the season. Adams right now, he's coming off the board as a wide receiver 11. He finished as wide receiver 14 last season in terms of per game fantasy production and PPR. It's just not a good value equation right now. I like the player, but I'm not willing to pay that price for someone whose best seasons are, in all likelihood, in the rearview mirror. All right, that does it. Those are the 5 wide receivers I find myself staying away from in 2024 fantasy football drafts. Thank you for watching. Again, please like the video, subscribe to RotoWire's YouTube channel. We'll be putting out a ton of draft content leading up to week 1. We'll have a ton of content coming your way through the entire NFL season. Come join us.